Marjorie Taylor Greene is not going away. She remains more than a thorn in Donald Trump's side. She is a knife, like protruding out of him, that she continues to twist and all of that Big Mac goop all over his sides. And Marjorie Taylor Greene just did it again after Donald Trump not only suffered a brutal humiliation, but got exposed to what is coming only a few months down the line in the midterms. And it is all while Marjorie Taylor Greene continues to rail against Donald Trump's illegal war and cause problem after problem after problem for him. And those problems have manifested into election losses, and they have hit very close to home, like last night when one special election really perfectly teed up Marjorie Taylor Greene to go off on Donald Trump and say what he is fearing most. But it all begins with what happened inside Mar-a-Lago, or I guess I should say around, that is clearly driving Trump crazy.
How delicious for Democrats this morning. My goodness gracious, they're waking up. Maybe they're going to get brunch at Mar-a-Lago and say yummy, yummy, because this result will make their stomachs feel quite good indeed. Florida's 87th House District election margin. Sarah is laughing over there. Look at this. In 2024, Donald Trump won it by 11 points. Look at this swing all the way to the left. We got Gregory the Democrat winning it by 2 points in this state house special election. I will also note that they flipped a state Senate district as well further north in the state. So double fun for Democrats in a state that they have been struggling with. Democrats have lost so much power in Florida over the last decade, and then they're able to win in Donald Trump's backyard. Democrats are absolutely loving it this morning.
Democrats are surging in the polls right now, and it is not just because Donald Trump has so thoroughly fucked his presidency, but it is because Democrats, at least some, are figuring out how to offer up an affirmative vision. This is not just anti-Trump, right? We have failed in being a party that only responds to Donald Trump. We have to talk about the systems that have been put in place in this country that have gotten us here. It is not enough to criticize Donald Trump, but criticize and call out and look to end the reign of terror that the oligarchs have carried out on this country. It is not enough to say we oppose Donald Trump's illegal war, but all new, unnecessary, forever wars started by the rich elites who don't send their kids to fight and die, or in the case of Bibi Netanyahu, send our kids to fight and die on behalf of Israel or on behalf of the military-industrial complex. That is what we have to go after, and that message is clearly resonating. It did in South Florida, and it is across the country. I think Jason Crow is doing a great job delivering it, and it is the perfect lead into what Marjorie Taylor Greene just said.
Well, Anna, I'm just thinking about my time as a young paratrooper during the invasion of Iraq and then later as an Army Ranger in Afghanistan, where we spent $5 to $8 trillion in Iraq and Afghanistan, 20 years. We spent all that time to replace the Taliban with the Taliban. And after 10 years in Iraq, we pulled out and ISIS then took over. So we have a bad history of regime change and nation building that ends up poorly, and not just ending up poorly, but thousands of American troops die, trillions of U.S. taxpayer dollars spent. And I'm looking at the chronology here of Iran. Let's take a step back and actually look at the chronology. You had a deal that was negotiated by Barack Obama that had IAEA monitoring, that had limits on nuclear program, that had civil nuclear cooperation, all of the elements that the Trump administration is pursuing now. We had that deal. Trump comes in his first administration, tears that deal up. We've been spending the last 7 years spending money, saber rattling. Now we're at war with Iran. Service members have died. We've spent tens of billions of dollars to go back to the Barack Obama deal. So what is Trump doing here? This is why Congress needs to get involved. This is why we need a strategy. And this is why we actually need a real debate on this and why authorizations from Congress are so important.
This is all pointless. There is no point to what Donald Trump is doing. There is no end goal. Nothing that he says about the negotiations that are happening are even remotely true. It is all fanciful. Even Donald Trump's gift that he got from Iran was a lie. I want to talk about that just in a little bit after we get into what Marjorie said. But let's do that. Let's get into what Marjorie said, because it's driving Donald Trump crazy. Marjorie Taylor Greene goes nuclear on Trump as Dems flip Mar-a-Lago. A former President Trump loyalist has twisted the knife after he suffered a humiliating loss in his own backyard. Reacting to the news that Democrat Emily Gregory captured the Florida State House seat that includes his Mar-a-Lago resort, former Trump cheerleader turned nemesis Marjorie Taylor Greene delivered a stark warning. Revisiting her regular concerns about Trump 2.0, she posted on Twitter this morning, complaining that the 79-year-old had effectively turned his back on those who put him into power. Turning your back on your campaign promises and many disgusting behaviors like calling one of your top allies enterprise traitor, referring to herself for releasing the Epstein files and refusing to go along with MAGA, apparently has consequences. She unapologetically ranted. Donald Trump is, of course, suffering brutal blow after brutal blow in these special elections, with Marjorie Taylor Greene saying 26 is gone, but keep putting Americans last and 28 will be too. Indeed, Gregory's narrow win could be a sign of things to come for Republicans and the Republican Party ahead of the midterm elections in November. While she won the district by just 2 points, the results mark a dramatic 21-point swing. Her victory comes as the Trump administration is locked in a war with Iran and with kitchen table issues that affect everyday Americans tossed to the wayside. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene giving a warning of what is to come in the midterms is no surprise. But that last little bit at the end of her post, that last little bit, everything's gonna go wrong in 2026. We already know this. You're already done. That's Marjorie Taylor Greene's warning. But what's her foreshadowing? Keep it up, and the same thing could happen in 28. Little bit of wiggle room there, right? Little bit of wiggle room. Unless we change course, says Marjorie Taylor Greene, unless we start a new MAGA movement, says Marjorie Taylor Greene, unless someone, I wonder who that can be, emerges as the face of a new Republican Party post-Trump, everything is done for. Who is Marjorie Taylor Greene alluding to? Who is Marjorie Taylor Greene? She's talking about herself. She's talking about herself, or she's talking about Thomas Massie, she's talking about Tucker Carlson, three people who I believe will all run for president. And that is going to, more than anything, I think, destroy the Republican Party. And here's why. Donald Trump is not a person who will be able to sit back and watch a 2028 primary without truly suffering a psychotic breakdown. Like, Donald Trump will be throwing ketchup at the walls, that the attention is not all on him. And it's the reason Donald Trump hasn't given an endorsement to Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance or anyone, because he's still holding that attention. But if he gets wiped out in the midterms, which is what's coming, if he has a Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe a Joe Kent hops in the race, a Tucker Carlson, a Thomas Massie, revolting against him and defining the primary, then the Trump endorsement will start to mean a lot less. And that's going to drive Donald Trump insane. And I think if that is the case, which I believe it will be, I believe it will be someone outside the Republican, quote-unquote, establishment that probably comes out as the victor of the 2028 primary. And I know we're talking a long way down the road, but this is why it's important. Because Donald Trump will not like that, right? It's not just that he's not going to like it. He's going to try to make sure that it doesn't happen. In my mind, the same man who on the stage in 2016 said, if I'm not the nominee, I won't endorse the nominee, feels that same way about 2028. Do you think Donald Trump's going to be going and doing campaign events for Tucker Carlson or Thomas Massie? Do you even think he would for J.D. Vance? I don't think so. I think Donald Trump wants to leave the White House and say of the Republican Party, it was falling apart before I got here. It is garbage now that I'm leaving. I think Donald Trump will see his party go up in flames in the midterms and say, do you know what? It's because they didn't listen to me enough. Right? He'll somehow turn it against them. Donald Trump has never taken a sliver of accountability in his life. So what Marjorie Taylor Greene right now is setting up is a fight to end the MAGA movement, to start the ultimate civil war within Republicans, which, you know, she's been pushing for. But she's only about to make it so much worse. And that is just a delicious thing to watch. I am very much enjoying the fight that is going to be coming, especially because Donald Trump has made the singular issue that people were most upset with him for, the cost of living. He's baked it into now the other issue people are most upset with him for, and that is an illegal and unnecessary war. One that he can't get straight no matter how much he retreats or how much he bombs, and there's no better place to look at Donald Trump's failures in this war than the Strait of Hormuz.
Must be so deeply offensive to those people in Iran who are opponents of the regime to hear Donald Trump talking about the Iranian regime, presumably the Ayatollah, giving him a present. Politico has this report on what Donald Trump's present could be, the present that he's so excited about. It's possible Trump was referring to a ship carrying 2 million barrels of Iraqi crude that passed safely through the Strait of Hormuz, the first tanker to export Iraqi crude since Iran tightened control over the strait, according to Bloomberg. But the White House press office declined to answer any follow-up questions. Several people close to the White House said they were baffled by the president's remarks. Baffled indeed. One ship getting through the strait, and Donald Trump treats it like a wonderful present, a, quote, very significant prize. But there's new reporting tonight from Bloomberg indicating that maybe no ship got through. Bloomberg says an oil supertanker hauling Iraqi crude whose signal appeared to show it had exited the Strait of Hormuz has not transited the waterway, its manager said. And Donald Trump says that present that may or may not have made it through the strait, that very significant prize means, quote, we're dealing with the right people. The only people who could authorize the movement of a ship in that situation is the current Iranian ruling regime, which is exactly the same ruling regime that was in place before Donald Trump started his war. And so Donald Trump is now desperately saying publicly that he desperately wants to negotiate with the very same regime that was in power before Donald Trump started his war, which means Donald Trump wants to negotiate to leave them in power.
There is no gift. There is no solution. There is no deal. There is just the idiocy of the President of the United States, who has wholly screwed us over as he plays the markets for his benefit and profits for his rich friends and gives Bibi Netanyahu whatever he wants. And that is why Marjorie Taylor Greene has a very strong message to blow up her own party with. And I'm going to enjoy watching them fight. Democrats, do not let Marjorie Taylor Greene own that narrative, right? That is ours. We are the anti-war party, or we should be the anti-war party.